Ducati Hypermotard. It's been around for a while. And if you own one of these, I don't know how you've resisted the urge to ride it during the lockdowns. It's just so good, just so manic, begging to be ridden hard. The Hypermotard you see here is the 950 RVE, which wears a street art inspired graffiti livery, which was originally conceived for the Concorso de Eleganza Villa de Estate event. I hope I got that pronunciation right. It was received so well that it not only won the award in the Concept Bikes New Design and Prototypes by Manufacturers and Independents category, yeah, that's the name of the category, it also spawned the standalone RVE variant. Fans of ultra thin will appreciate that the graphics are done in ultra thin vinyl decals to mimic the finish of airbrush street art. Now, we don't usually see such loud graphics on a Ducati. Their motorcycles are usually designed to look good in a single shade of color, preferably red. But once you take a look at the RVE in its element, it's hard to like the standard Hypermotard. The RVE also gets the up and down quickshifter Evo as a standard fitment, and compared to the oversensitive quickshifter that we've complained about on, say, the Multistrada V4, the RVE's unit seems far better tuned with little or no unexpected shifts while hooning around in the city or cruising on the highway. Highway cruising, though, is not really the Hypermotard's thing, given its dirt bike on sports wheels, supermoto body style, which doesn't really provide great long distance comfort and will also have you battle a lot of wind blast beyond 130 km an hour. But out on the open road, the 937cc V-twin manages some ridiculous speeds. And while the max power coming in at 9000 RPM sounds peaky, the engine races to that point quite quickly. The engine, which is fairly updated over the Hypermotard 939, brings along new pistons, new cram profiles, larger 53mm throttle bodies, and a higher compression ratio. All of this contributes to a 4 PS increase in power. Of course, we've sampled this engine before, very recently in the Monster 950. However, the tuning is different in the Hypermotard. It continues to have that strong mid-range pull, but the low end is even stronger now, delivering over 80% of its peak torque at around 3000 RPM. The eagerness is so evident that around the tight switchbacks, you may have to resort to the urban or the touring riding modes to dial down the aggression of the sport mode. It also borrows the updated gearbox from the Monster, which boasts of lesser friction, smoother shifts, and a less clunky shift into neutral at traffic stops compared to its outgoing counterpart. The Hypermotard 950 has the latest suite of electronics, including an anti-wheelie control, so contrary for the motorcycle's intent. But look up the internet for the Hypermotard and you will know it's a hooligan. A hot favorite amongst the stunt riders, the go-to machine for those who like to hoon around on city streets, and one of the easiest Ducatis to crash on and still stand up laughing. It is mind-blowing in that sense. Reading the specs might make you feel that this motorcycle is not for everyone, especially the 870mm saddle height. It is pretty tall, but I'm 5'8", maybe add a few centimeters for those boots, and I get both my feet comfortably down on the ground. Also add to it the fact that the 52mm trim on the seat now makes it quite easy to perch on than before. The Hypermotard 950 also shows off its trellis subframe that has made the ergonomics friendlier. The flatter seat is not only more comfortable than before, but also allows easier movement for the rider to commute, wheelie, or attack corners with. And it corners far better too. The 950's 4 kg weight loss isn't evident, but it is noticeably sharper around the bends. The fabled mid-corner awkwardness of the Hypermotard does come back on some tight switchbacks, but the 950 largely remains a fun cornering tool if you're willing to adapt your riding style. You'll often need to trail brake towards the apex and then power out hard. And while you're doing that, you might have to shift your weight not just to the front or the rear, but also into the corner or away from it, depending on the kind of corner you're attacking and the kind of line that you want to take. The cornering ABS and the Pirelli Rosso 3 tires complement it all as far as you're riding on tarmac, but concrete roads often hurt their confidence. The 950 also has a slide-by brake for those willing to exploit it, allowing 10 degrees of slip before the electronics intervene and keep things in check. So in short, every aspect of this motorcycle is tuned for hooliganism. The Hypermotard 950 RVE feels like a tall commuter between the legs, but goes like a liter class motorcycle of the 90s and has the advanced electronics of a modern day machine. With a combination like that, it not only attracts the younger generation of bikers to try out this not so popular form factor, but also entices old-timers to treat this as a drug for their midlife crisis.